Hey everyone, I'm going to tell you about getting your Tesla aligned. Good news, bunch of good news, bunch of bad news, and what all this stuff means and what you need to be concerned about. As it comes from the factory, definitely go get your alignment done. Hey everyone, so I wanted to tell you about an experience I had getting my alignment done. I did get some new wheels and tires for my Tesla Model 3 Performance, and based on the alignment from the factory on this car and my previous 2018, as it comes from the factory, definitely go get your alignment done. I learned that the hard way on my previous Model 3 after burning through like 2 random tires on the car after maybe 10,000 miles, and I burnt through like the inside of a couple different tires. And I couldn't believe it because I was like, how? What's going on here? So I had the alignment checked, and 2 tires they weren't drastically far off, which was another thing. They don't need to be that far off to burn through tires. And here's the other thing that you need to do is, okay, so these obviously aren't the factory wheels and tires from Tesla. However, the concept is the same. So a lot of times you look at your tire and you go, oh yeah, look at this. You know, you put your finger here and you go, oh yeah, man, I got a lot of tread here. These tires are fine. Well, that's how mine looked for a long time. But then one day I went under the car and looked at the whole tire, and the inside here was so worn, I couldn't believe it. It wasn't at the radials yet, but it was like bald. So yeah, 2 tires completely shot in 10,000 miles. The outside of the tire, or even the other couple tires on the car, were fine. Like, they had normal amounts of wear, could have easily gotten 25, 30,000 miles out of those tires. But no, I ended up having to buy 4 new tires. So yeah, definitely check your alignment. Okay, so the good news is, here in Naperville, Chicago area, Discount Tire, I've gone there for years for tires. They've always done right with me in terms of if I've had a problem with my tires, if I wasn't happy with the tires, really, really great customer service. A massive downside there is they have no way to check the alignment. Well, lo and behold, Discount Tire, at least here in Naperville, they've got a whole alignment rack now. They've got the whole machine, which is fantastic news. And get this, they will check your alignment for free. For free, they'll check it. Price, God, on a normal car, I can't believe I'm forgetting this. They maybe only charge $100, it's $100 or $150 to do an alignment. A Tesla, they want more, $200. So it's not outrageous. I did a whole video before. I used to go to Firestone, because Firestone, you would get your alignment done for maybe $250, and it was lifetime. So you could just bring your car back at any time, you know, if you adjust the suspension, hit a curb, or maybe you just put a lot of miles on the car and you go, hey, I want to get my alignment checked, you know, and they would check it and adjust it for you for free. You know, again, you had to buy the lifetime thing, which was only like maybe $50, $100 more. But anyway, but then Firestone got all crazy with Teslas and they won't do them anymore. Okay, so that's a whole other story. And this goes back like 2 years, and last time I talked to them, same thing. They wouldn't do Teslas. So I can't believe it. So good news is Discount Tire will do them. Okay, here's the bad news. They don't have specs for 2024. What? Okay, it's been 2024 for a while now. They just got all this brand new machine, I'm assuming brand new software, and they don't have specs for 2024. They definitely don't have specs for the Performance Model 3. So that's like, what the hell? Okay. However, in talking with them and looking online in the actual service manuals, they have specs. In the service manuals, Tesla service manuals, they have specs. So I said, well, what if I come back with the Tesla specs and tell you what I want? You know, will you do it? Yeah, no problem. Fantastic. Here is before with all my little notes added in there to, you know, some of the specs changed. This is 2017 to 2023, and I'll get closer in here and show you guys. But threw the new specs in there. I told them what I wanted though, and yeah, they did it. That's the bad news, good news, and I've got a little bit more bad news. They won't adjust. They say they can't. Well, they made something. They made this poor kid. He made up this cockamamie excuse as to why they wouldn't adjust the camber and caster. They said they didn't have the tools. However, when you look up how to adjust camber and caster, it takes like, you know, a wrench. And I said, dude, and I was showing him the manual. I said, this is how you adjust it. Come on. He's like, well, they don't want us to adjust it. And he was like, well, because it's, you know, it's I don't know what he said, moving the suspension, whatever it was. And I said, well, dude, what are you doing with all the toe and all that? And it turns out that they don't want them loosening. To adjust camber and caster on the Tesla, you have to loosen some bolts on the top mount, and you kind of just adjust with the amount of play that's involved with installing the factory suspension, the struts on the top. And they don't want them doing that. They don't want them loosening up those bolts, because if they don't tighten them correctly, then the thing falls apart. At the same time, they're putting wheels, literal wheels and tires on your car. If they don't put the lug nuts back on correctly, guess what happens? Your wheels and tires fall off and everybody dies, okay? So what's the problem with it? Anyway, whatever. So that's the bad news. Bad news, good news, bad news, good news. Back to good news. Caster was slightly off on mine, but not enough where I really cared. Camber, it actually has more camber than it should, but it wasn't that far off, and actually that's not a huge bad thing. The number one adjustment that you want to make with your alignment is toe. Toe is basically your wheels and tires being perfectly straight, looking straight ahead, driving straight, and you want them towed in ever so slightly. If they are towed in more, this is how your car is trying to drive forward, and they're just kind of constantly scrubbing. The more toe you have, the worse the scrubbing is. So that's what really wears your tire down. Camber, some of these guys driving around with like crazy camber, you know, it looks ridiculous. It is ridiculous. But if you've got just some a decent amount of negative camber, that doesn't really wear the inside of your tires down that badly. It does a little bit, but not nearly as much as toe. If toe is off, again, you're just constantly scrubbing those tires. If your tires are perfectly straight and you've got camber, it's not really going to wear them that badly, that much more quick than if you had zero camber. So anyway, the toe is the most important thing. Let me get closer here and I'll show you the specs. And then a little bit more bad news, but this tech didn't completely understand what was going on with the rear toe and the adjustments on there, which kind of concerned me, but he was fine. Everything was good. Yeah, let me show you this. Okay, so I've got all kinds of notes in here with the new specs. You know, instead of 0.8, it should be minus 0.3, and these. And so anyway, camber can't be adjusted, caster can't be adjusted, toe. So this was a toe, minus 0.24. That is pretty far off. Same thing, minus 0.11, which puts it out here. The max is supposed to be minus 0.01. So, you know, it's off 1/10 of a degree, which, you know, that's pretty big, not massive. This one is definitely worse, and we want slight positive, okay? And that's the other note that I have here. Toe in is a positive number and toe out is a negative number. Negative camber, you know, people who race their cars and they want to be able to corner better, they say as much as possible. So these are the notes that I made. This is front, left front, right front, and again, this is before. So going back up to camber here, minus 0.14, minus 0.1, you know, I'd rather have these the same, but again, it's more negative camber, so I'm happy with that. That's fine. No, not a big deal for me. So here on the rear, the camber is good, fine. We're good with this. You're supposed to be the new spec, well, the spec from 2024. Max minus 0.9, so minus 1.2. It's off, but it's not off by much. You know, we're good, and it's off in the correct direction. Here, pretty far off. You know, 0.1 degrees. Here, off even further. So yeah, this is not good at all, and we needed positive toe. It's in the complete opposite direction. Okay, so this is another day and the final adjustments that they made. Here you can see camber they didn't touch, caster they didn't touch. Toe, I would have liked a little bit closer to 0, but I'm fine with that. So what happened here, though, in the rear? These are the final numbers. However, what kind of threw me was the kid came back after doing one adjustment, and I don't have that page here, but he didn't really understand that these numbers here, which this should actually be 0.18 is the 2024 spec. But to show you the concept that the kid didn't understand, which was kind of concerning me, he kept acting as if this point here would be like 0 degrees. And I had to keep explaining to him that it's not, that 0 is still 0. And, you know, we'll call this, I can't draw straight. We'll call this 0.13. We'll call this 0.23. Yeah, but what concerned me is that this kid was thinking like in between these two numbers was 0. Like, again, that this was 0. It's not. You know, the difference here is 10. Cut that in half, 5. This is actually, you know, 0.18. Jeez, I can't write. So my penmanship is horrible. So I was telling you, this is 0.18. That's what they consider in the center of these two numbers, and I want as close to 0 as possible. However, after, you know, looking at these specs, I said, okay, let's get the toe closer to this end here. I want it close to 0, but I think Tesla had this number in mind because the way the car, when it loads and unloads and when you're under acceleration and everything else, this is their, you know, minimum number. So I told him get as close to this number as possible, whereas up here I wanted him to be as close to 0 as possible. You know, I wanted this 0.01, you know, 0.07, you know, okay, I let it go. But make sure that when you go in and you get your alignment done, that first of all, hopefully they'll have the specs for 2024. If not, ask them if you can bring the specs in and have them match these numbers for you. They should be able to do that, but make sure you understand, you know, what you're looking for, because if they don't understand, you know, like numbers, they're not going to do it correctly. You want your toe as close to 0 as possible, but slightly toed in. But in this case, go with the minimum spec here, the 0.13, 0.13, and here, you know, 0.01. That's your goal. That is going to keep your tire, that's going to keep your car running straight and not veering off into one lane or the other, and it's not going to wear your tires down. That is the most important part. And then camber, you know, like these notes that I have here, negative camber, you know, as much as possible, and toe in, you know, it's actually a positive number, so that's why actual toe in showing here, it's a positive number. But anyway, and then if you were to go to a shop that adjusts suspension for track, they would adjust your camber and caster. And, you know, maybe I should have. I was there, it was convenient, and I was fine with these numbers. I don't track my car, so it's not that big of a deal. But anyway, I hope this helps out. Good news, bad news, good news, bad news. Good news, bad news. Thanks so much for watching, and please like and subscribe.